You guys, welcome back to Vancouver Carpenter, the drywalleriest carpenter on the internet. So, vinyl corner bead. I'm not actually a huge fan of vinyl corner bead. I've actually almost never installed it, but just like almost every other DIY channel, I watched a few videos on how to do this and I'm ready to tell you how to do it now. No, but seriously, I'm gonna try and use my years of experience to show you what I think can and can't go wrong with this product. Okay, first off, we're just gonna be using regular tin snips to cut this, just like a regular corner bead. And you can just kind of bend that off. So what I don't like about a vinyl corner bead, I don't know if you can see just how slick and shiny that is. Now, how is mud supposed to really stick to that properly? That's the first problem I have with this stuff. Like, I'm not a huge fan. I know people use it all the time, and if it was actually a bad product, it wouldn't be out there, even though, you know, the shelves are actually full of bad products when it comes to a lot of different things, but many people have used this probably for almost their entire careers. But I have noticed that in general, mud tends to blow off of this stuff in bigger chunks as soon as the nose of the bead gets hit. Anyways, we are not talking about mud set bead either. Trimtex does make a vinyl mud set bead that I think is actually a really good bead, but this is just your standard vinyl corner bead. And we're going to be installing it with spray adhesive. It's also recommended to use staples, which I also think is totally laughable. Like, when you use staples into drywall has no holding power. So I don't see why staples is actually going to improve it. When contact cement bond, which is what this glue is, I do think that this type of glue, the Trimtex one, has some real benefits in the way that it sprays over a regular, 3M Super 77 or whatever it is they're called. Those are good. But I think this one is a little bit better for this intended purpose. And you can also use this stuff just for any of your regular contact cement, like spray adhesive needs. So yeah, it is good that way. Anyways, let's get on to spraying this stuff. So again, giving credit where credit's due, one of the things that I saw was you don't need to spray it on super thick. And this came from Drywall Nation, Brian at Drywall Nation. Because definitely in the past, when I've done arch beads and stuff and had to use vinyl bead, I've sprayed too much on here. So give the can a little shake first. It comes out really fast. So I don't really have the speed. I would say that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit thick. I wonder if I could have done both sides at the same time. Too late to know now. That's way too thick at the top. I'm probably too far away. Oh, this is going really well. This is definitely a DIY in your garage video. If you do it too thick, the stuff takes too long to dry and it slides around, so it's not tacky. So when you get drips like this, that's gonna take too long to dry. The rest of this is actually tacking up, but yeah, that's too wet. Most of it looks okay though. Not quite good there. So what I think is weird and kind of tricky about this stuff is that it can't be fully set up, or as soon as it makes contact, it's gonna stick. I'm just going to the bottom down here. Let's see how this works. You want to make sure that you're trying to get it on square. Okay, this actually isn't going too bad. Okay. So that actually went on pretty well, and we can see that it's actually like up against the board everywhere. That's pretty solid. I'm happy with how that went on. To be honest, it was pretty easy. So at this point, there is definitely zero adjustment ability. And that's one of the things that I think is kind of weird about this stuff. And like, if you ever worked with contact cement, you know that as soon as contact cement makes contact, it's 100% bond. And I think the idea with this stuff is that you're actually supposed to get it on right before it's 100% bond, but not when it's able to slide around easily. So really short open time. I don't know how well it went on. Actually, that's pretty straight. That's not bad. A little bow right there. I mean, that could just be the wall, but it went on straight fairly easily. I have definitely twisted steel corner beads easier than that by nailing on. So yeah, not too bad. Now I really want to see how it coats out. So I'm gonna go get some mud. But actually before that, everyone's gonna be going, Ben, you have to staple it, Ben, you have to staple it. And yeah, technically, according to manufacturer's instructions, for sure, you have to staple it. But again, I think the staples have literally zero holding power in this unless you use Trimtex's divergent staples. So that's a special type of staple where instead of both going in straight, I think they go in angled, right? So one goes up, one goes that way. And that gives it some actual holding power. But that means, again, you have to have some special staples that I don't even know if they actually make those. In the 4 videos I watched to train for this video, I didn't see anyone mention divergent staples. So I'm not sure if that's even a thing anymore. But that's part of the reason I'm not doing it, is because without actually using divergent staples, you're not really getting the proper holding power from the staple, because that one actually, because they go in opposing directions, it actually provides a little bit of mechanical resistance to being pulled out. So I wanted to get that one out of the way. And because this is a silly wall in my garage and not a job that I actually have to worry about, you know, like insuring after, well, who needs staples? Let's see how it coats out. It's all nice and stuck, even without the staples. So I really feel like when you're coating these, it's so annoying because this is a false wall that's just moving. But I really feel like if you're not actually filling up these sides, so all these little slots, come over on this side a bit. I feel like if you just go like this, if you just, you know, like just coat downwards, you're not filling up these holes enough. And part of the bond from these is also the mud actually going in here. And it kind of actually has to get in behind all the flange too. Because if it's not 100% bonded somewhere, you want the mud to go in there so that you don't have a hollow spot. Otherwise, it's not going to be as strong. My cat is in here. Check him out. Don't run away. Okay, anyways. So I really feel like the first coat, I mean, I shouldn't be using a 6-inch knife. Honestly, I should be using a bigger knife. But I did this on the bevel, and you'll see when I wipe that, that's why the mud kind of stops right there, because I did it on the bevel. I feel like I'm getting scatterbrained here, you guys. But yeah. I mean, it's coating out nice. Cool thing is, you know, you don't have to necessarily wait for it to dry the way you do with the tape-on corner bead. But you don't actually have to wait for tape-on corner beads to dry, to be totally honest. Like, I've installed those in a rush on the same day tons of times. And as long as you have enough drying time after, it's not a problem at all. And speaking of drying time, I have heard from many sources that to get a really nice finish on a vinyl corner bead actually takes 3 coats. 2 coats of regular air drying mud. You are still going to get a pretty hollow bead, and as it dries, you're still going to be seeing the flange. So that's something to be aware of when it comes to a vinyl bead, is it takes a lot of build out. And especially if using runny mud like this, you might not get the build out necessary after only 2 coats. But yeah, I'd say before we actually close this video out, we should coat it the 1 or possibly 2 more times with air drying mud to see how long it really takes. This mud is too runny. I'm making such a mess. That's okay. It's just a DIY drywall video in your garage. Okay, let's let this dry and come back to it. Okay, this has had a chance to dry. it feels like ages for me. It's been a couple seconds for you, but if you can tell by like the haircut and how long my facial hair is, I don't think I've shaved since the last take of this video. But anyways, I have some thoughts on this vinyl bead that I'd love to share. So I would say that it's pretty resistant to cracking. I added this steel corner bead just for some future video purposes, and all that nailing and hammering didn't crack the flange at all. So it's definitely well glued on there. It for sure looks like it's going to need another couple of coats to really disappear, but it's looking good. I'm still really feeling like it doesn't need staples. Look at this thing moving. Garage YouTuber wall. It makes it a lot harder when the wall moves. Okay, I remember my other thought now. It was also that it's pretty easy to make a mess with the spray adhesive. You can see it on the wall here, and that's not going to paint up well. Now I will admit that that's because I'm inexperienced with spraying the stuff on the wall, but if you're new to vinyl bead, you're gonna be inexperienced at spraying that stuff on the wall too. So it's one more thing that you're gonna have to look out for. Not the end of the world, but still. Okay, now that we have this second bead on here, it should help it cover a little better. Well, I think that generally it would be passable with 2 coats. We'll see what it looks like when it shrinks. I think you could get away with it, but somebody who knows what to look for could see that the bead's empty. Empty might be the wrong word, but slightly hollow is what we call it. We call it a hollow bead when it's not full enough. Okay, this has had a chance to dry. Let's get this light shining right across and turn off the overhead lights so we can really take a look at it. Okay, let's see if I can actually show you the problem. So the fact that we can see all those holes still is not a good thing, because after we sand, some of those holes might still be present, because I don't want to sand it so much again that we make it hollow. So the other problem is this nosing. It sticks out quite a lot, and if we sand it, we might actually see this nosing after paint. I'm going to sand this exactly as I would for a finish coat. That was actually more than I would usually sand it on a finish coat. Now let's take a look at it. So we can just faintly see those holes. And yeah, it took a lot of build up. Like, couldn't quite get the mud flat and smooth yet, although it did need to be mixed, and I did have it a little bit thin, but still, on second coat, it should have been a bit better than that. Definitely that nosing is a bit more exposed than it should be. And as we go down, let's see if we can find any of those perforations. Most of those sanded out, but overall, yeah, we can just see that it needs a third coat, in my honest opinion. There's some of those perforations still showing through. That's where I hit it with the broom, just like an apprentice. Okay, so what are my final thoughts? Final on vinyl. Well, I think that I would probably choose steel bead over vinyl, because I would rather nail on beads than use that glue. But I do think that the vinyl bead is stronger. Now the other thing, talking about steel beads over vinyl beads, is, I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, it was the third coat. So I've almost never had to do 3 coats on steel bead, only if it gets installed too proud. But the vinyl beads just naturally sit more proud than a steel bead. And we haven't even started talking about paper beads. Obviously, if you guys have watched the channel, you know that paper-faced beads, like the tape-on paper-faced bead, is by far my favorite corner bead. You can get them on the most snug. They're the easiest to adjust. They usually go on the most straight. And I don't think you get that many callbacks from them. Yeah, they fail sometimes too. Every drywall product fails sometimes. It's crumbly mush with paper over top of it. Like, what do you expect, you know? Anyways, yeah, vinyl beads, I don't think I'm gonna start installing them. Personally, not a fan. The nosing is also a little more round than is to my taste. I like the slightly sharper one of a paper-faced or of a steel bead. But yeah, that's my thoughts on vinyl, you guys. I'm gonna finish coating my pretend wall. You don't need to watch me coat the whole thing, but maybe we'll take a quick look at it when I'm done. Okay, now it's looking nice and flat, and I don't think the nosing of that bead is gonna shine through anymore after paint. It'll sand nice and easy. So in my opinion, I really do think it actually takes 3 coats to make it good. I think if I had 2 almost unworkably thick coats of mud on there, we could have done it. Could have gotten an acceptable finish in 2 coats with really thick mud. But for how I had it, definitely 3 coats now looks like how my beads usually look after their second coat. Well, you guys, that's my experience, my one and only experience with vinyl bead. Years ago on the Drywall Talk forum, I read, a handful of guys saying, yeah, I don't like vinyl bead, it takes 3 coats. So I did come into this thinking that might be the case. Again, had I had thicker mud, it might not have been the case, but it would have been unworkably thick. And I also did not enjoy having to use the glue. I didn't feel like there was any opportunity to adjust it. With steel beads, you can tweak them and put them different places and nail them in place wherever you want it. It's kind of annoying. With paper beads, if you use quickset and you have a decent enough amount of mud underneath the corner bead, you can do anything with them. Like you can make them dead straight, you can make them curve. You can plumb a slightly out of plumb wall with them. Like there's all kinds of stuff you can do, but I don't see how you could do that with a vinyl bead. The vinyl bead more or less follows the framing, and I think if you tried to pull it out or tweak it in any way, it wouldn't be strong at all. As for the staples, again, I don't think it was necessary. I'm sure it's just fine. But obviously manufacturer's instructions say use staples, as did probably about like 50 comments, but whatever. Anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna be switching. I'm gonna stick to paper. I'll use steel in a pinch, and I would only use vinyl if it was the only thing on site and somebody else supplied it for me. No offense, Trim Techs. You made a great sander, and you have a lot of really good other products, like I think all the radius ones and all the detail vinyl beads that Trim Techs makes are awesome. But as for just your standard 90-degree corner bead, not for me. I have no need for it. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. I hope you're doing well. And as always, I hope your projects are going well, but I hope you're doing even better. Till the next one.